1951. A gentleman wrote a letter to the letter to riders section of the Western Horseman saying that his horse could beat any horse, including the Arabians, on a test of endurance. And Wendell wrote back and said, I want an Arabian stallion and I accept your challenge. And since I'm the one accepting your challenge, I say let's go ride from Auburn to Tahoe City. And the man backed down. He did not take up the challenge. Wendell may have gotten the idea of riding that ride, but in reality, I don't think that's the reason why they ended up doing the ride in 1955. In 1951, my grandfather was involved in a very serious car accident. The big heavy truck was traveling on the same road, and they met in the middle of a bridge crossing railroad tracks over the mountains. And Wendell was, of course, he received the worst part of that crash because he was just driving a small Willis Jeep. The people that came to rescue him thought that Wendell was dead, that his throat was cut. But before they left, apparently the blanket moved and they thought, oh, he is alive, and they scraped him up and took him to Sacramento. And of course, nobody expected that he would survive. But he did, he survived, he woke up, and he said that the nurse told him that, oh, the doctors didn't expect that you would wake up, Mr. Robie. And they said, well, I guess you're going to live, but you'll never walk again, Mr. Robie. And of course, he walked out of the hospital a few weeks later, only with the aid of a cane. And the doctor's parting shot was, well, you may be walking, Mr. Robie, but you'll never ride your horse again. And of course, what better way to rise to the occasion than to ride his horse 100 miles in one day? And that, I believe, is the true reason the sport of endurance riding was started, was to show those doctors that Wendell Robie would indeed ride his horse again.
Now when you rode with Wendell, hang on, because man, you're going. And if there's a smooth trail there and there's a rock pile and trees there, we'd go for the rock pile and the trees. But this was him. He was a courageous going guy. And we were having a good time, though. And we'd finish the ride, we'd drink some beer. So those were happy days. We're young, very young, which is nice, you know. But that's what we did. That was our hobby. We followed Wendell. When Wendell asked us to do something, we responded in the usual manner. Yes, sir. And got on with it. But Wendell was a kind despot. Put it that way.
He was a self-taught man. He did attend college, though he did not graduate.
Read a lot. He was a historian. He was a voracious reader of books. Asking Wendell what kind of a tree is that, he would tell us. What kind of a flower is that, he would tell us. He had this infinite knowledge of history, the flora and the fauna. We drove him plumb nuts with questions. Because in our not such impoverished mind, here's an easy access and resource to all the information we want, so why should we go look it up? And that is the truth.
I think he thought he could do anything if he tried, and he accomplished quite a few things. I mean, who the hell ever heard of putting on a ski jump in Berkeley? He did it. Who the hell ever thought of riding a horse over from Auburn to Tahoe or anything? He did it.
I rode the ride in 1958, and as most endurance riders know, the Tevis Cup was not given until 1959. So the first 4 years of the ride were without the Tevis Cup. It was a ride to finish it. We didn't care about who was first, though Wendell Robie was the first all 4 years. The ride in 1958, we did not have pit crews as they so often do today to help them out at vet checks. And in fact, we were riding that ride in 58 so fast we beat the veterinarians to all but the very last stopping place. The veterinarians did not have us trot out. They just went over and looked at the horses and, oh yes, they're okay. I didn't know about judging metabolics at that time. The vet just put his hands on my horse and put a stethoscope on my horse, and that's really all that I can remember. It has, of course, evolved into something a lot more safe for the horses. But we did the best we could in those days.
I was contacted by Wendell Robie to come up and become one of the veteran judges in 1961. And I was kind of excited about studying horses that were under stress because I had a backyard horse practice, and I didn't see horses that were stressed to the extent that the Tevis Cup horses were. This was quite a revelation to me. Unfortunately, I pulled Mr. Robie at Michigan Bluff. He was riding a little gray mare named Spica, and she came in and he pulled a dido, and she went lame, and she just had a hip that was a muscle pull, and he went tearing off in a rage, and everybody said, "This is the end of your experience as a Tevis Cup ride judge." And of course, at that point I was so exhausted anyway, it didn't make any difference. But I said, "The mare's lame, he goes where I go." And he came up and shook my hand about an hour later, punched me on the arm, and I rolled around, and he put his hand out and said, "You're right, the mare's lame." And we became friends. I was kind of a hard nose in those days, and because I get guys like Pat Fitzgerald and Cliff Lewis who were circumventing the rules of the ride, saying there were no rules, and Wendell wasn't too much for rules either. Endurance riders were pretty knowledgeable and pretty hard nosed, and several of them were pretty hard to deal with. Well, we finally got the teeth in it when I said, "You're out," they weren't to proceed any further along the trail, and that took some doing. It took a couple of years to get that done, because the California State Horsemen's Association was wanting to stop the ride. Then I defended the ride and said it had more supervision than the racetrack horses, that I felt that it was really unnecessary to eliminate the ride, that we just had to really examine horses. A year or so later, there was a veterinarian hired by one of the humane groups. He scoped around the outskirts until I invited him in. I says, "Come on in, you don't have to be hiding out. We don't have anything to hide." And so he relaxed a little bit, but he was a young fellow on a pretty tense situation for him, It was really kind of rough for him. But he was hired to eliminate the ride, and he couldn't find any grounds for such a drastic thing.
They were concerned about the safety of the horses because they didn't know it could be done. Now it's done every day.
I never knew I was going to do 16. I had no idea that was such a tough test. I learned to respect the trail very much